Well, today we interview what I believe to be the first mother and daughter duo that I've certainly had on Mental Health Radio. Daughter Laura, who is 18, and mum Tori have established Fighting the Mind to raise awareness of eating disorders throughout New Zealand and possibly in the future beyond New Zealand. Its establishment coincides with Laura's life-threatening episode of anorexia, which resulted in her being admitted to Starship Hospital, and there was a risk there during her stay of heart failure and losing her fight against her eating disorder. Laura is fortunately on her road to recovery, though progress is perhaps somewhat tenuous at times, and it is a day-to-day challenge. Mum Tori has had her own challenges with anxiety and emotional abuse. So, Laura, Tori, welcome to Take It From Us. Laura's a little bit nervous about this interview, but how are you feeling right now, Laura?
Very nervous.
Very nervous. You could take a deep breath and just imagine that we're in that cafe last Tuesday where you were quite confident about talking about eating disorders. Does it make it a little different to be in a radio studio?
Yeah, way different.
Does it? Way different. Well, let's talk a little bit about Fighting the Mind, which has been established to provide eating disorder awareness and recovery support. Why have you set this up, Tori?
Well, basically, when we were first going through Laura's illness, when we first found out she was suffering from anorexia, we found things very difficult, and we found that there was a lack of support. We actually isolated ourselves quite a lot. Now, after her first admission, we found that we still didn't have that support that we needed. So after Laura's second admission, it was actually during her hospital stay, I literally started Fighting the Mind in her hospital bed in the hope that I'd be able to spread some form of awareness by telling my story and also sharing Laura's story as well. So pretty much it was a way of helping me and helping Laura, but also we were in the hope that it would help others out there as well to sort of raise that awareness.
Because there is a degree of stigma and discrimination, just as there is with mental health, but there is with eating disorders, and even the word anorexia is a bit scary, isn't it?
Most definitely, you're so right with that one. Obviously, when we first found out that Laura was suffering from anorexia, even I wasn't as aware of eating disorders as I should have been, so I did a lot of research on it, and my family, I felt too, was sort of really undereducated in that area, hence why we sort of backed off and we isolated ourselves. But I found the more that we spoke to people about it and about what was going on with Laura, they were educating themselves as well. And I also find because of this, people find it really difficult to talk about it, and they kind of feel ashamed because of the fact that eating disorders actually change your life completely, you know. They completely turn your life around. For me, it was a case if I had to give up work, I had to seek financial assistance from the government. We had to look at all other options of how we were going to sort of live. And I feel like there's a real stigma to attach to that because eating disorders don't discriminate. So it can happen to any family, it can happen to anyone, and so for me it's definitely something that needs to be spoken about a lot more.
Right. Well, Laura, when did this eating disorder first sort of emerge?
It started a few years ago when I decided to go vegan, but it went pretty well at first. Like, I ate and I wasn't scared of stuff that I ate, but eventually I started to obsess over it, and I would start cutting out foods that I thought were bad, and I would restrict completely, pretty much only drink water and coffee, and then I would start exercising. So
vegan is without meat, I understand. Is it without meat?
Without meat and dairy.
And dairy. So was this the sort of start of you discriminating about certain foods and not eating some foods.
Well, yeah. Like, I'm not saying that being vegan is bad, but for me it kind of triggered the whole anorexia thing.
Right. So when did you have your first hospital admission?
What date was it?
August, September last year.
Yeah, August.
And where did you go to hospital?
Starship Children's Hospital.
So they are a specialist in eating disorders, or they're just the hospital you go to if you're under 18?
No, they do have a special...
Eating disorder clinic.
Any disorder clinic, yeah.
Right. So that gave you the opportunity to meet other people that were experiencing eating disorders?
Not so much in the first admission. I isolated myself quite a bit. But in the second admission, yeah, I did meet a lot of people.
And that second admission was earlier this year, about February?
Yeah.
Right. And that's when... your health was under threat?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what was happening for you at that time?
Well, health-wise, I was having heart palpitations, and my heart rate was down to about 40 beats a minute, and I was extremely dehydrated. My electrolytes were imbalanced, and I was iron deficient, and I was extremely weak. And
so that was all the result of not eating and not looking after yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And what's behind that? What caused you to get in such a state?
Because growing up, I was quite a chubby kid, and I was bullied a lot at school, and I was picked on and stuff like that because I was chubby, and so I thought that was like the only way to make myself feel better was to lose the weight and get skinny, pretty much, yeah.
So it sounds as though it was pressure from your peers at school. They were pretty unkind to you in terms of what you describe as your chubbiness.
Yeah. And another part of it was moving around. I changed schools a lot, so I never really had any friends, and after my mum and dad broke up, everything was pretty unstable. So I felt like I'd lost control.
So did that happen over a long period of time or quite quickly?
It did. It took a while to actually turn into anorexia, yeah.
I mean, were there any other associated sort of what you'd call mental health, anxiety or depression?
I've suffered from social anxiety and low self-esteem ever since I can remember, pretty much, and that obviously didn't help when it came to everything else. So
how does it feel to be able to speak on a radio show like Take It From Us when you have those social anxiety issues?
I mean, it's really good, but I still am. I'm like so nervous.
Really? The palpitations are coming back? I get them sometimes when I'm in the studio as well, but then I've probably got a reason at my age. But thank you very much for sharing that part of your story. I mean, what impact has it had on you as a mother, Tori?
Quite a huge impact, actually, because of the fact that when Laura was so sick, she didn't actually believe that she was sick. So any help that I did try and get for her, she would either try and refuse, or she would make some excuse up. And even when it came down to, me sort of asking her if she stood, was she getting dizzy, how was her heart, and she'd say, I'm fine.
That response from a teenager is often a bit frustrating,
Exactly. So for us to actually, and for me to actually get her that help was really difficult to begin with, let alone the fact that she had been through so much in the last 7 or 8 years of her life, which started at 10 with she was bullied at primary school, and that's when her issues did start. And obviously then she went through me and her dad breaking up, and then after that, that's when I sort of really noticed the anxiety with her, and then we had the moving around. So it has been pretty tough because it's only really ever been just me and Laura, so, and hence why our relationship is so strong. So for her to be that sick and for me to feel so helpless was really difficult. The thing is, though, I was prepared to do anything to save my girl. So in that respect, I just, like I said to Lou, if she didn't want to fight, I would fight for her.
I mean, I guess the reality is that, Laura, you have to want to live, don't you? You have to want to be healthy, and there's this saying that we are the expert on our own health, and we're personally responsible for how we are. But it's lovely to see that your mother is so supportive. I mean, how has that helped in your journey to get back on top?
She's helped me a lot with reconnecting with my family and my friends, and just giving me so much support, so much, it's unbelievable. She never worries about herself most of the time. She's always worrying about me, and she's put in so much effort to making our house feel like a home and setting it up, and it's really nice.
You're going to make me cry, Lou.
Well, we better take a music break. Not that we're against crying here or emotions.
You're with Take It From Us on 104.6 Planet FM.
And we're talking today on Mental Health Radio to our first mother and daughter duo, Laura, who is 18, and mum, Tori, and we're talking about the establishment of their charity, Fighting the Mind, which is to provide eating disorder awareness and recovery support. In Declan's introduction, Laura, he mentioned about loving yourself. How are you on the loving yourself scale?
I find it very hard to love myself. I really do. I want to, more than anything. I would love to love myself, but it's really hard to, get out of the mind frame of hating myself. I've tried for years, but I'm slowly getting there, though, which is good.
What sort of support have you had in terms of the idea of loving yourself?
Well, my friends and my family have given me an unbelievable amount of support, and I've got my mum, my brothers, and even their partners always telling me that I'm beautiful and stuff like that, and it has really helped.
Yeah, I mean, one of the downsides of mental illness is that it's not really seen, is it?
No.
And, you look... a bright, attractive, young 18-year-old. And,
attractive.
Beautiful, yeah.
But you're sort of hiding, I suppose, well, not in some ways, hiding the disorder.
Yeah, because on Fighting the Mind, I want to stay strong and help support as many people as I can, but I'm not on there a lot because sometimes it gets too much, because I still struggle immensely with my eating disorder. Some days it's just I don't even feel like I could do it. It's on the outside I try to look brave and happy, but it does get really exhausting.
So when you get to the end of a day, maybe you've been on Facebook on Fighting the Mind and trying to mentor people and help people. I mean, how do you feel at the end of a day?
That's actually, Mum can back me up. That's when I get the most moody. She's had to deal with me a lot.
Well, when you get tired at the end of the day,
yeah.
That's when we kind of have to go through the process, because that's when Laura gets tired, the anxiety sets in and the anorexia voice becomes quite loud. So that's when I sort of have to deal with that in a way where I settle her back down, because the idea of sleep to her then is not something she wants to do, because the anorexia voice is so loud and telling her not to sleep. So we just have to sort of work through that, and I have to speak to her, not the illness. I I completely ignore the illness when it is there, and I make sure that Laura comes back out. And we get Laura back out, and even if it means I have to lie with her and stroke her head, the fact that she is 18 and still needs that, sometimes to me it's the fact she suffers from a mental illness, and if her head needs stroking to get her to sleep when she is feeling at her lowest, I'll do it. So,
yeah, so you talk about, Laura, a voice, your anorexic voice. What does that anorexic voice say to you?
Well, it's not really a voice. It's more like really loud, uncontrollable thoughts. That's the only way I can put it. But it always says, like, even when I'm going to lie down to go to bed, it tells me to not lie down because I'm being lazy for going to sleep. And eating food, it says I can't eat that because if I eat that, it'll make me fat. Even though there's no way. Like, I know, but it's just, it's constant. Like, anything with this, like, my big thing is carbs, so I'm scared of breads, pastas, potatoes, rice, all that. And yeah, every time I think about eating it, the voice is like, you can't eat that because it'll make you fat. You can't eat that.
But the reality is that it's not going to make you fat in moderation.
In moderation, no.
No, right. Yeah, so, I mean, is the recognition of this disorder in the communities, I mean, do people know that anorexia is a mental illness?
I'm not sure, sorry. I think that some do, but the majority don't, to be quite honest. And I think there's a lot of people that are quite unaware of the impact that anorexia has. Anorexia has the highest mortality rate among all mental illnesses, and eating disorders can prove fatal. So, and also as far as mental illness goes, they are definitely a mental illness, and I think a lot of people, because they associate with eating disorders with just that, eating. I think people think that with an eating disorder, it's just a matter of eating, you'll be fine. You know, so I think there's still a lot of stigma surrounding that, most definitely.
And a lot of obstacles, as Laura is saying, in terms of accepting the carbohydrates or some of the foods where your thoughts are saying that these are going to make you fat. They're going to make you chubby.
Yeah.
Definitely. And even with her food, not so much now, still maybe sometimes now, but someone that is suffering from an eating disorder, Laura, for example, with her anorexia, she doesn't see it as food. She sees objects on her plate. So for her, being told for months and months and months and months and months that food's her medicine, that's a saying she really sort of did not like at all, because she would just see these blobs of objects on her plate that she just did not want to put in her mouth.
Well, the whole idea of food being medicine, I mean, none of us like taking medicine, do we?
Exactly. So,
do you like taking medicine, Laura?
No.
No, I don't like taking medicine, but, you know, the specialists and health professionals tell me with my history that I have to take it, and, you know, I react about that, really, you know, because I do believe that there are other things that I'm doing, like mindfulness and Tai Chi and meditation, and those, I think, they're wonderful natural therapies that I've adopted anyway.
Definitely.
Yeah. This discrimination against eating disorders, what does that stem from, do you think?
Again, I think it boils down to the fact that I think people think that eating disorders are just cured just by eating. You know, because like you say, yeah, Laura looks perfectly fine on the outside, you know, like if she was walking down the street, you wouldn't really, I mean, she's still tiny, yes, but, you know, she looks like a healthy, young, beautiful girl, but still very sick and still suffers from her anorexia quite severely. So again, I think it is the fact that it is an invisible illness and that people assume that food is going to fix it.
You're with Take It From Us on 104.6 Planet FM.
So perfection is a bit of a dangerous goal in mental health, I think.
Yeah, because when I was in the throes of anorexia, I would always compare myself to other anorexic girls or boys, and I would think, oh, they're so skinny. I'm not as skinny as them, and that would just motivate me to lose more weight and get that perfect body that I wanted.
So the thinner you are, the more perfect your body is?
Well, yeah, when you're in that mind frame, yeah, the thinner you are, the prettier you look, yeah, pretty much.
You even looked at girls and boys that were normal size. Well, I don't want to say normal because I don't believe there is a normal, but you also looked at other people and you also believed that you were not as small as them when in fact you were probably half their size. Yeah. So your mind was really distorted as far as your own sort of body shape was determined.
Yeah.
So Mum has said that, eating disorders, there's the highest rate of mortality. Is that death by just not eating, or is it death by taking your life?
Some people do commit suicide, and some just don't eat. But with anorexia, you don't know that you're sick because you don't feel it. And you don't. You think you're fine. You don't think you're sick. You think, you're healthy and you can keep going.
But even when you were admitted, you've been admitted, I think, twice to hospital. When we go to hospital, doesn't that convince us that we're sick?
No, not even me. I would I would compare myself to the other girls in there and think, they're skinnier than me. Why am I here? I thought I was fine.
Right.
The night she was admitted, the night we went into hospital waiting to be admitted, she refused anything. She was going to rip her drip out and she wanted to go home. She said, I'm fine. I don't even know why I'm here. The doctors are just going to send me home anyway. Anyway, the next morning she was admitted, and that was a Friday. We'd been there overnight in emergency. The next morning she was admitted, and then she said to me, I'll be out by Monday anyway because I would have put on all the weight and I'll be...